Hello, this is the Fight Back podcast, hosted by exercise scientist Georgia Very. Here you'll find a series of honest conversations about martial arts and mental health. My guests and I explore the statement that every martial artist has heard: martial arts saved me. How and why do combat sports save people? Listen to find out. Hey there, conscious combat soul. What, you? Yes, I'm talking to you. If you listen to this podcast, then you are a human being who loves combat and wants to be conscious about the way that you're doing it. You're interested in being more trauma-informed, more inclusive, and more ethical in the way that you teach and participate in martial arts and combat sports. And that's why I would like to invite you specifically to join our new group, the Conscious Combat Club. We're on Facebook, and there's an emailing newsletter that you can sign up for, the details for both of which are in the show notes here. But now, let's get to today's episode. Right. Welcome to the Fight Back podcast. Everyone, I am here today with Rew Mitchell, who is the founder of Awakening Fighters, and I'm going to get him to tell us all about what Awakening Fighters is and who he is.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. So Awakening Fighters is a website that promotes and supports female fighters around the world. Martial art, any discipline, basically. It's not one of these websites that just focuses in MMA or Muay Thai or Jiu-Jitsu. We kind of cover it all. The idea is to, it's very bold, very ambitious. I want to catalogue the history of female martial arts. And so what I've been doing is I've been collating lots of fight records and martial arts histories. And essentially, promoters use the website, fight announcers use the website, gyms use the website, athletes use the website, fans use the website. And when an athlete's got a profile on the website, it gives them a platform to show their history to potential matches or promoters, and they can advance their careers. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So
let's dig into more about you, and then we'll come back to the platform. So at what point were you like, I'm going to start a website that's going to promote female fighters?
Okay, so there are a few things throughout my life that led to that moment. I did martial arts growing up, probably for about a decade. And so I had a martial arts kind of like background. This is going to go around the houses a little bit, but it's going to get to the point. In the 90s, I'm not sure if this is what happened in Australia, but in the UK, there was a thing called lad culture. Did you have that in Australia?
Well, I was born in the 90s, so don't remember, but probably some. Yeah. I think I kind of know what you're describing, but sum it up for people just in case. So
everything in culture, in media at the time, was all about sexualizing women. And I was in my 20s, and I thought it was great until I started dating this woman that really hated what was going on, and it was really affecting her mentally. And I didn't understand it, and she took me into newsagents and pointed at the wall of magazines and said, "What do you see on every single cover of the magazines?" And I'd never noticed that before. There was all these women being sexualized, and I all of a sudden understood why women weren't happy with what was happening in culture in the 90s. And I don't know, I just understood it. So I've kept that with me for some reason. And I've got a few friends that have mentioned it since, the 90s lad culture and how damaging it was to young girls. And yeah, so that's, I kept that with me. So that's that point. So before I started the database, I'm a photographer, and I was in Colorado doing a photography festival, and I went to a seminar that was about conservation photography, and big nature lover, and I wanted to go into conservation photography because the photos they were showing had proven record of changing the world. Oil spills and things like that, that make people take notice. And I tried to get in with them, and they looked at my portfolio and said, well, yeah, you're all right. Go away and kind of do some actual conservation photography, then come back to us, and then you might be able to join. This is a company called ICLP, International Conservation Photographers League. Now, they're so high level photographers. Their photos are stunning. However, they take photos from helicopters and stuff. I can't afford a helicopter. So I went back home to the UK, and I was thinking, I just really want to get into that. And I just by chance happened to see a trailer for Ronda Rousey versus Miesha Tate in 2012. The first time they were going to kind of match up. And before then, I hadn't really had any thought at all about female fighters, because it wasn't really on any show, at least not in the media. And it was beautifully shot, and it just made me think, well, if this is a high level fight that's about to happen, no one's heard of it. So why is that? And it's because promoters at the time didn't believe in female fighting, and all of a sudden I just felt this like I could feel there was a wave coming for female fighters based on that one trailer. And I just thought I could do the photography thing for female fighting, so I could change the world by taking photos that make people go, can I swear?
Yeah,
I won't swear.
You can swear.
Okay, they make people go, oh shit, female fighting's a thing. I never knew that. So then I started to look at what female fight photographs are out there. And at the time, it was very much wearing a dress, wearing boxing gloves. That was very common. And I thought it was a bit lame, really, because from a martial arts background, having trained with both women and men, they're equally as good. There's almost no difference. Well, no, there are differences, but they have different qualities. So yeah, I never saw there as being like one was better than the other. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here a little bit. You might have to help me out.
For sure. I mean, like the starting point of that story with seeing the sexualization of women has really been mirrored across the growth of women in martial arts, in mixed martial arts, in kickboxing, in every really high level in boxing of combat sports. The way that promoters have gotten around this fallacy that no one wants to watch women fight is by making it a sexualized experience. You know, you only have to think to, how did women get the right to play American football? They wore lingerie, and they had like a lingerie league, right? And the same thing has happened in mixed martial arts, in martial arts across the world. It's been that in order for women to be relevant, they were ring girls to start with. And then they were, you know, allowed because it was seen as, you know, sort of like a cat fight, or, you know, like really beautiful women who could also fight. But if you didn't have, you know, you needed to have this sort of physical appearance piece in order to be successful in martial arts. And to be honest, we still have a lot of that today. There's still a great deal of that seen now. And I've spoken you might have heard with Alex Channon, who is also from England, as a professor, about the sexualization of women in martial arts. Because this is our image of women. So certainly we do need, if we think historically, like if somebody looked back at the internet without something like photography work of women that depicts them as something other than sexy, while fighting, then that's going to be our database. Like kids will be Googling, mixed martial arts in 2022, and all they're going to see is the weigh-in photos and dance celebrations and,
Yeah, I don't see anything wrong with a woman being as feminine as she wants to be in a photograph to promote herself. That's not the issue. It's the style of photography. Like there's I kind of like photos when they're arty as opposed to titillation. Do you know what I mean? So I don't mind the femininity. That's not what I was kind of working against. I just wanted to not have I wanted to see some blood and stuff. Like the fight, the actual fight photos is like those are the ones that are. Oh God, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought again.
Yeah, those are the ones we want people to be able to look up, when they look at the history of the fights. It's not just the weigh-in photos, or, other photos that are, like you said, particularly styled, but they are, mid-fight, arm swinging, leg swinging, or, at any point during a fight. It's
I'm guessing because you and I haven't met till today. I'm guessing you haven't seen any of my photos.
I haven't seen the photos.
No. But what you'll see in the majority of them is they are quite different. And that's because I'm taking them from the mindset of I'm trying to represent the fighter as opposed to the woman. So I think that my photos at the time stood out quite a lot, and I got a lot of great response on social media from thousands of people. And I will say that you said there's still sexualization, and there is, but I will say that it has changed somewhat. Now there are quite a few really good high quality photographers that are treating women the same as men in terms of their photography style. I don't want to take credit for that. But when I started, there was only a couple of photographers really that were doing it how I thought it should be done. And I think because I led with the idea of I'm promoting the fighter, and I want female fighting to be bigger than it is, and I wasn't trying to sell anything. It was literally about art. I wanted to change the world with images, and that I think I did that quite well. That sounded quite.
You can talk yourself up. It's totally cool.
I really don't like talking myself up. I find it really difficult. I had a similar conversation with Claire Baxter, and she pointed that out. She said you should get these stories out, but I do struggle.
That's all right. I'll chip in. Don't worry. We need allies in a war against, and I do consider a war really against a society that sexualizes women. Like you saw, it's not just in fighting, it's across the board. We still live in patriarchal terms, as in there's really a hierarchy of power over, and it's men over women. And one of the ways that women have been kept with this at the lower end of gender equality is by being sexualized, is by being objectified. So it's really, really important work. And I think the history of women's fighting is very rich as well too. Like women have not just had to fight against being sexualized. Women have had to fight for the right to be allowed to fight. Women were only allowed to compete full contact about 30 years ago now. Karate, boxing, across the board, there was a real delay due to a number of things. False narratives around breast cancer, right? As if breast cancer was somehow a bigger risk than testicular cancer from getting knocks. They spoke about, like it wasn't appropriate for women, or, just that everyone who was in positions of power to allow them were men. And so women have come up against quite a lot of things, through history in order to get to this point to be able to say, no, like some women, right? Not all women, but some women want to get in the ring. We want to have this opportunity to fight and to showcase our skills. So it's very important.
I will correct you a little bit there.
Yeah.
I've got fights on the database that go back to, when was the earliest one? Got one from the 40s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Barbara Batrick. But overall, I think you're correct. It has taken. It's taken someone like Ronda Rousey, someone that's undeniably good at what she does, to make kind of men go, oh, actually, why aren't they fighting? I want to see more of that. And the thing is, with female fighting, I find when you've got a card that's got 15 fights on it and you've got 2 female fights on it, actually that's a fair representation of how many men versus women are actually practicing the fighting martial arts. However, those 2 fights quite often are the most exciting fights. So why aren't there more? Yeah.
Definitely. I always say, like, to other women who are starting to look towards competing, you need to be very intentional about making sure that you spar with women, because women fight differently to men. Overall, it sounds counterintuitive, but women will fight at almost double or triple the pace of men. Their volume of output is really high, whereas men seem to try to land the big power shots. So they almost seem more calculated, which you wouldn't think. You would think women would be more calculated, but there's something about getting in the ring that flip something. I know for me, it's like a blur of how many punches and kicks can I do as rapidly as possible.
Yeah, so I was speaking to someone the other day about the differences between men and women, and they were listing all the things that men do better than women, and really the only thing that men have more of than women in general would be power. When it comes to speed, women are faster. Flexibility, women are naturally more flexible. And there's a focus with female athletes that men don't have. Men, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, male fighters have a certain, there's a bravado, there's a me man kind of deal where there's some strutting involved, whereas women seem to be more focused on technique and not swinging great big ham fists about trying to prove their manliness. I've been to lots of gyms and seen it in lots of gyms. I just feel that women, there's a different intensity to a female fight, and you're right, the volume of punches and kicks is incredible. And I wonder if that is, do you reckon that's in part to do with muscle mass? The way the biological difference between the muscle mass.
Yeah, well, generally speaking, the more muscle mass you have, the quicker you will fatigue. So that's why you see that heavyweight fighters, for example, can't sustain a high pace. They're really looking for a first round knockout that just, it's not that they don't do enough cardio because they're lazy. It actually takes a significant amount of energy for them to throw every single punch. So they do need to be more conservative. And if you then think to like the flyweights or like the, you know, the lightest end of male fighters, you see that higher volume too. So I think it's definitely a contributing factor. Nobody's done that research, so I couldn't say it's definitely that, but it would have a big piece to play. Yeah, for sure.
When I did martial art called Wushu Kwan, my instructor or master, as I would call him at the time, he explained that a clenched fist moves slower through the air than, I'm not going to do the hand gesture, but a chop or something like that. I'm not talking Hollywood chops or something like, more of a spear hand or something like that.
For sure.
That moves through the air at far higher rate than a clenched fist does. And I wonder if that's the same for slighter limbs. So in part, you've got your a bulky man will kind of, his cardio won't be that great, even though could be a complete specimen. His cardio won't be as good as someone that's slighter. And also on top of that, someone that's slighter, their limbs will move faster through the air.
I don't know whether you define that holds up. I think, yes, with a spear hand versus a fist, you're going to have more of what we call laminar flow through the air, which is why, you know, if you think about like aircrafts or, you know, air dynamics, you always want to be able to have a smooth surface for something to flow over, whereas a fist has a lot of surface area towards the front of it, which is why it's going to be met with a bit of air resistance. But that's probably going to be negligible relative to the force output.
I think, let me redefine what I was trying to say. It wasn't about air resistance. It was more about a punch includes kind of various kind of tensed muscles, whereas a spear hand doesn't. So it's more about how your muscles work. It wasn't about kind of
Okay, so this is the theory, and it's like well-established theory of agonist and antagonist muscles. So for example, if I flex my bicep, if I pull my hand up towards my shoulder, like in a classic bicep flex, the muscle that causes that is the bicep. But the muscle that would oppose that is my tricep on the back of my arm. And if I try with 100% of all of my might, what I'm actually going to do is co-contract the muscle that causes the action and the muscle that would oppose the action. And what you'll find is that then I'm actually slightly less powerful because I'm trying so hard. I'm actually pressing the brake and the accelerator at the same time a little bit. And that's why in martial arts, really elite fighters, really elite strikers have this kind of relaxed state where they're not punching with everything really, really tensed because they know that holds back their power. So that's possibly part of the relaxed hand versus fist, but yeah, very interesting. And when I come back a bit to awakening fighters, what's the goal? What's the goal? What's the dream? Is it to do more photography and attach that to the site? Is it to keep growing the database? What's the vision?
Okay, so the photography and filmmaking, I've made various kind of promo films for athletes. I really love doing that stuff because I'm a creative, so that allows me, you know, it's my brand. I do what I want, so kind of I can be as creative as I want. So I love doing all that. However, I kind of slowed down on that in about year 3. We're now in year 10. It's our anniversary next month.
Congrats.
Thank you. So in a year 3, we kind of slowed down on all the creative stuff because were just inundated with athletes giving us their information. It just became a data entry beast. I want to continue with that because I see how useful it's been in getting people matched, getting athletes on kind of better paying cards and stuff. So I want to continue with that. I want to build on it. The overall vision, I'm still wondering if to make this public or not. I can't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I want to start putting events on, and I want the events to pay better than anyone else at the level that I'm doing it, because I think that's, you know, what they're worth. I want fighters to be paid what they're worth. You know, I'm not interested in getting rich. I'm interested in making a living, but I'm more interested in the cause, I suppose. Yeah, I'm very ethical when it comes to running Awakening, and it's been my downfall. It's been a complete money pit. Yeah, so the overall goal is to work towards putting events on. Interestingly, I did a Kickstarter in about year 5 or 6, I think it was, to start doing the events. The Kickstarter got 5,000 shares. Wow. That's mental. But it didn't achieve its goal. I made a complete error in, I kind of assumed that everyone would get what my vision is, and they go, oh, definitely we'll support that. But I failed to have a date. In my head, I had a date when it was going to be, but I didn't put the date in the Kickstarter. It's going to be at this venue on this date. So we didn't meet our goal, even though we got 5,000 shares. I after the Kickstarter ended, I messaged about 70 different athletes and said, why do you think it failed? Every single one of them said, don't know when it was. How can I put money into, I don't know when it was. So I should have booked the venue first and said it's on this date, and then started worrying about all the details. But I'd managed to get Julie Kitchen to come out of retirement to face Drina Barnes. I had both of them agreed to do that. Missed that opportunity now. But that's the ultimate goal, to start putting events on. I think I'm probably about a year away from that now. Yeah, I was trying to do it originally. I was trying to do it with investment, but I'm not a great business mind. I'm more of a creative, ethical mind. So I've decided I'm just going to save up and do it myself. So then if it fails, it's my problem. But it won't fail.
It won't fail. Definitely not. And I think, like, it can't be understated how big the value of a platform that helps female fighters get matched is. Because for people who aren't aware, this could also just be my perception, so correct me if I'm wrong, but there are very few weight classes for women. So if you fall outside of what are the really common weights, which what I notice is sort of 53.5 kilos and 57 kilos. If you're heavier or lighter than that, which is a very small range, if you're heavier or lighter than that, it's really hard to get matches. And it gets harder and harder the more experience that you get, because there are fewer and fewer women who have kind of equal experience to you. Someone like Claire has a really hard time getting matched because she's a very experienced fighter and she fights heavier than that standardized, weight class. And for me, like, one of the reasons I quit fighting is because I can't fit into those weight classes. But there's nobody to fight. There's basically nobody to fight. You almost have to look outside your country. And how are you going to know who there is outside your country unless there's a database?
Yeah. Did you look at the database to see your weight range?
I haven't looked at that because I didn't at the time when I walked away from competing in kickboxing. And to be honest, at the moment I'm very interested in competing in jiu-jitsu, where the weight classes I think are just a little bit more friendly. Has been my overall finding is just basically that same day weigh-ins are healthier than doing dehydration cuts. And for me, that's been really important recently.
The names of the BJJ weight classes aren't quite so pleasant for women. Like my ex, she hated that she was called a heavyweight.
Heavyweight is like over 69 kilos, I think.
Yeah, she wasn't in any way like what a boxing heavyweight would be. What I was going to say, Claire Baxter, she discovered us in, I think she said 2014, and she said she couldn't believe how useful it was that she, before our database, she had no idea who was out there, and she spent like days on the website looking at all the fighters that she could potentially fight in Australia and other countries that were close. So I think that's one of the main uses for it, and to actually hear a fighter say that's made me feel so good. It's doing its job. And
definitely.
And Invicta, Caitlin Young, very well-known fighter and matchmaker of Invicta. She uses the website, or I should say used the website when it was perfectly up to date. It hasn't been up to date for about 2 years just because it became overwhelming. But I'm back on it now, getting everyone back up to date. So hopefully she'll come back and start using it again.
What can we do to make it easier? Like, is it a system where people can submit their details and then that website automatically updates, or do they have to email you to say, this is my record, here's a photo of me, this is where I live? Or
so we've got an awakening profile questionnaire that if someone asks for, I'll send it to them. It's a beast. The thing about the awakening website is it lists all the disciplines. So if we haven't got a discipline, we'll add it. So most martial artists, and you sound like it as well, won't just do one martial art. They'll have dabbled, they'll have had fights in various things. Awakening was the first, I can definitely say this, was the first website to list all of them together in the same fight history. That's what I wanted to see. I wanted to see I wanted to know who Ronda Rousey had fought in judo. I wanted to know who Jarina Bars had fought in MMA, and I didn't want to go to different websites. I thought, why aren't they all together? That's someone's history. It's like, it's important. This fighter has fought this fighter in 2 different disciplines. Why isn't that on someone's? So we did that, and now 8 years later, the big boys in this kind of data collating industry, they started doing the same, which is great. That's I'm not going to knock them for that. That's what we all want to see. I was first.
Yes.
Thank you. But to answer your question, yes, someone can contact us, and we'll send out an awakening profile questionnaire. It's all manually built. It's it's a massive website that's been built without a budget. Like, it's a lot of the other websites have got teams of people. It's just 2 of us. So there's a lot. I think actually another strength that the awakening website's got over the other websites, and I don't like websites, but this is a strength, because we just focus on female fighters, and there are, I would say, somewhere in the region of, in every 20 fighters, 1 fighter's female, 1 or 2, something in that ballpark.
Yeah.
So these other websites are dealing with thousands of fights per month to update. The Awakening website, it's about 300 to 350 female fights that happen around the world each month. So we can focus on making profiles look amazing and be really kind of representative of what a fighter's achieved. We're not just chucking information on, we're kind of making it a good representation, so when a promoter sees that profile, it's useful.
All right, well, a lot of female fighters listen to this podcast, so we're going to put in the show notes to make it really clear and easy how people can submit their information to be added to the database should they so wish. But I think most fighters would like some form of recognition. It's really nice to have, so I'm sure a lot of people a lot of women will want to be added, so we'll work something out in that way.
Thank you. I will say that like you did, the first thing they should do is search for themselves in the database, because quite often, sorry that you weren't in the database, quite often fighters will find themselves already listed with kind of a little bit of information, because when a fighter has a fight, their opponents get added to the database, and then over time we add bits and pieces of information. And another cool thing about the database is, thanks to fighters like Sylvie and any of the fighters that are fighting in Thailand, Thai fighters weren't ever listed anywhere, but now we've been able to connect the dots, and so we've now got Thai fighters with full histories.
It's really, really wonderful. I think it's really important work, so we'll definitely help to promote for people getting added, and also the use of this. And when you finally do get your date stamped Kickstarter up, then we'll share that as well too.
Thank you. I don't think I'm going to do a Kickstarter. I'm not going to do that route. No, I'm just.
Well, once you've got your event, then we'll share it. I'm sure it'll be in the UK, right? But that's all right. We'll share it.
The first one.
The first one's going to be in the UK.
Yeah.
Lots of good stuff going on in the martial arts space in the UK. It's cool. I want to ask you the question that I ask everybody on this podcast as well. So in your experience and having seen so many fighter profiles in your time, why is it that you think martial arts seems to have such a profound impact on mental health? You hear people say, Jiu-Jitsu saved my life, or Muay Thai saved my life. And sometimes they mean that literally, and sometimes they mean that more figuratively, as in it changed my life so significantly, it feels like it saved my life. So why do you think that is?
Martial arts has a way of really taking over your soul. I suppose it's because you're focusing on something that's so deep. The deeper you get into it, the deeper it becomes. And there's not many things that are like that. Science and things like that, I suppose. That's what I found. I started martial arts because I was being bullied by older, bigger kids, and I wanted to do some damage. But what happened is, after I'd been in martial arts for literally only a month, all the bullying stopped and I never got into a fight. I guess it just made me carry myself differently. I never attracted any of that bad attention. So in a way, it saved me from getting involved in silly stuff, I suppose. Another way martial arts has saved me is I wrote a book, and I'm not here to plug that, about martial arts. And this was in the first month of the first part of the pandemic. I'd just been dumped from a extremely happy 8-year relationship and was really struggling because lockdown happened, and then I was completely alone. So I kind of dug into writing this martial arts book, and that really helped me. And I actually want to say a little something about Taoism as well. But to specifically go back to your question, there's a section on the Awakening website where we ask the question, why did you get involved in martial arts and when? And similar to your question, so I've seen a lot of different answers to that, and like ranging from abuse to I started martial arts because I was told I couldn't. That's a Julie Kitchen. That's a lot. So yeah, Julie Kitchen started fighting because she told she couldn't. She started at something like 24 years old, which is absolutely crazy. I'm not sure if that's a good answer or not. But I would say Taoism is another, because it's related to martial arts. I suppose that's relevant. Do you know anything about Taoism?
Tell everyone, please.
Okay, so Taoism is a Chinese religion / philosophy. The thing about the Chinese religions are they're not like any of the other religions. There's not a deity. There's not worship. It's a mindset. It's an understanding of how, or a way of looking at how things work. So Taoism, I would say, has saved me, and I think it's very closely related to martial arts. So the yin yang symbol, that's Taoism, and like imagine you're inside a circle traveling through space and time, and on one side of you is passing all the good stuff that existence brings, all the positive stuff, and on the other side passing you is all the negative stuff.
Okay.
And Taoism is all about recognizing the good and the bad, the equal, and you've got to stay in the center of that circle, because if you drift too far to the edges, that's when you can get enveloped in either side. And we've all been too hyper and done stupid things, or we've all been really depressed and been close to the edge or whatever. So it's about understanding the just the way of the universe, negative and positive, the equal. It all happens. It is what it is. That's I suppose a way of looking at Taoism. And actually, I would urge anyone to read the Book of the Way, the Tao Te Ching. And actually, what saved me specifically was, and I say saved me, I have been suicidal a while back, and this saved me from that. As an audio book on YouTube, the Tao Te Ching, the Book of the Way. Just type in the Book of the Way, and it's a 2-hour podcast, audio book, and a really nice, soft-spoken guy reading a translation of it. And I listened to that every single night for about 2 months, and every time I listened to it, I understood it more. So yeah, I would urge anyone to check out Taoism. Wonderful. It's not preachy in any way, even though I've just preached about it.
I think that was a fantastic answer. But I would be amiss to not come back to the point you glossed over about having a book. So what's the book about?
It's called, I thought it was a clever marketing idea, it's called Way of the 69 Fists. It's essentially, it's a quick reference book listing 69 of the most well-known martial arts, their histories, the etymology, their impact on popular culture. And I've written it with a slight humor in there. And it's a quick reference guide. It's not that beefy. It's just something I needed to focus on. I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to do something martial arty. And I found that having been dumped, I need to focus on something rather than crying into my pillow, and that really helped. So yeah. Quick reference guide to 69 martial arts.
To 69 martial arts. Well, we will put the link to that as well as the YouTube video, and of course the Awakening Fighters platform in the show notes. But just to speak it to everyone, how do people find you and the Awakening Fighters?
Okay, so the website is awakeningfighters.com.
Cool.
And you can email me at info@awakeningfighters.com. Something I'm really trying to push right now is the YouTube channel. It's relatively new, but I had a brainwave recently that I think that might be the key to making Awakening sustainable. Sponsors, basically getting sponsors. I've always been of the mindset of I don't want to ask the fighters for money. I think there are people with big pockets, like sponsors, brands. I think they should be kind of or they're in a position to support something like this. So yeah, I think YouTube, people can find it. Just type in Awakening Fighters, but the channel is Awakening Fighters Inspire. We do have a Facebook group as well. So yeah, that there will be the ways people could check us out.
Awesome. We'll put the links to all of those in the show notes, and people can find you. Thank you so much for coming on.
No problem. Actually, I should say a big thank you to Evelyn, who is my partner in crime. She's a friend that helped me with the database, and she's been amazing for the last 6 years. So yeah, she deserved a mention.
100%. Thank you, Evelyn. Have you thought of something to be grateful for today? What was it? I'm grateful for the amazing women that train with me at the Fight Back Project. I'm grateful for Nari and the beautiful song Shape Me heard at the beginning and end of every episode. And I'm grateful for you for listening to this show and helping martial arts keep saving lives. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you'd like to leave me a review to help more people find the show, that's a bonus.
You need to know that nobody shapes me but me. Don't gotta tell you what my name is, I don't gotta explain it. Walk in the room, hear a boom erupting like I'm famous. I'm here shedding shells, I'm shameless. I fear nothing, no complacence. Walk too many tight ropes with no hope, so I became this poster they hold over all the heads of trauma holders. You don't need to know my history, I move boulders. Atlas shrug, cause I lifted the weight above his shoulders. No pretense of defense, move first like chess soldiers. This goes deeper than empowerment, cause I'm the one that power it. Physical meets mental, challenge me to keep devouring. If I can't change the scenery, at least I change perspectives. No longer isolated, but elevated and selective. Darkest places become beautiful spaces. This is where rage meets patience, meets power meets gracious. Meets, we're so glad you came and the feeling is contagious. When you the walking impact of intended bad intentions. When you the manifesting of collecting all they tensions. You the soul and body hold it all and still remember. But I'm a work in progress, testament to all contenders. Forgot what it was like to have control over self. Forgot what it was like to be the one in charge. Forgot in my reflection I could see all my wealth. Forgot that with my bare hands I break all these bars, barriers and obstacles. They can't cage me, they can't chronicle all my experiences and reduce them to appearances. When I was truly beaten, gave myself clearances to fall down, mess up, and get myself back up. I'm not looking for clovers cause I don't believe in luck. Damn, you were badass, I heard them say it clearly. Why thank you very much, I know now I'm not weary of what's next for me. Cause I expect to see growth like I was planted, watered, fed, and bloomed to be. The positivity and accountability, knowing they won't step if I'm the agent of my agency. I think I found my voice again, huh? I think I found my voice again, huh? I'm not sorry, you're the end where I begin. Boundaries, I know them well, take a breath and meditate. Who is she? I know her well, now I get hearts are open gates. 1, 2, 1, 2. I don't need your permission. And if you get uncomfortable, then use your intuition to know that I won't stay where respect is ever missing. And everything I do, that's me making decisions. It's truly underrated, the value of self-worth. Forgot that I was rich from the moment of my birth. A penny for my thoughts, no really, you can't afford it. You cannot buy my story, rewrite it, or record it. You cannot buy my story, rewrite it, or record it, huh?